John Party, Kicks 105.5, Heartache on the Dance Floor. 748, good morning. It's Good Policies with Mike Barrett from Barrett Insurance Agency. How we doing, Mike?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Excellent day. So here's my first and foremost thing. I turned 50 this last summer. And
you don't look a day over 75.
I may be having a midlife crisis, and I want to get a motorcycle. Motorcycle insurance, fairly inexpensive.
Yeah, so in this realm, in this area, motorcycles are annual policies, but they're seasonal vehicles, right?
Yep.
So companies in this area are going to be rating a motorcycle policy based on the statistical average riding time.
That's got to be a lot less than if you lived in Florida.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and same with snowmobiles. I mean, it's the snowmobile of the summer. You have not in Florida, but you have a certain period of time that you're able to ride. Now, does that mean it should be $10 a year? No, but because there's still quite an exposure there. I mean, it's a hazard. You are taking some extreme chance by riding a motorcycle, so that still remains part of the equation. But you're paying a price more representative of the season that you can ride.
Has it been easier or harder for you since DMV is starting to kind of reopen back again during the COVID times? Were you able to still do business without a lot of glitches?
Yeah, so we're not at all tied to the DMV. So we have absolutely.
Nothing to do.
So Vermont, we're different. A lot of people, especially like Massachusetts, where agents down there, I think they actually give the license plates in some cases. But
really,
they're much more tied into the DMV because Massachusetts is a no-fault state. So they have same with New York, they have a much stricter regulation of motor vehicle and motor vehicle insurance. Where Vermont and New Hampshire. Of course, New Hampshire being the live free or die state, certainly a little more laxed in that regard. So we're not tied in. Now, that did cause some issues because a lot of people were moving to the area and they wanted to insure their vehicles in Vermont, especially when they saw the price. Insuring a vehicle in Vermont versus Massachusetts or New York City. Yeah, it's
much cheaper.
Much cheaper. I want to do this yesterday. But we were dependent on, they had to wait for the DMV to be able to get their vehicles registered. And that was quite a prolonged issue during COVID where people couldn't get registered.
I drive around now and I literally see more pieces of paper as license plates in the back of windows than I see actual license plates.
Yeah.
And supposedly they're going to be reopening the St. Johnsbury location here.
Yes, every third Thursday on the 5th Monday of July. Sorry.
What? Boy, DMV's going to be calling
I
your
know,
office
I'm pretty
later.
sure I just made some...
Can I speak with Mr. Barrett?
We would like to talk to you.
When family members die, I inherit, a home, a car, a piece of property. Their insurance obviously would come to a close. As a representative of the family member who passed, would it be my responsibility to come to you and say, hey, this is what went on? Or does most of the time, if the policy lapses, you're just like, oh, well, I saw in the newspaper in the obituary they're no longer with us?
Really, the way we don't prefer it to happen the way you just described. Yeah. I mean, we obviously want to give the family time to mourn. The last thing we want to do is if we see an obituary for somebody that we insure is to immediately start calling the family during their period of mourning saying, you got to make some decisions here. The hope is, and we're seeing more people do this too. Has
this happened a lot over your insurance years?
Oh, yeah.
And is that like a really odd conversation? And so generally speaking, I mean, if somebody was like, okay, grandma passed away and she left us her home, the insurance on the home would be, of course, a couple $100 a month probably for, if she had home and auto bundled together, $200-300. That's still $200 or $300 I didn't have before.
Right.
That I'm now having.
Now you're on the hook for that payment. But,
can I bundle it into my already home?
Well, when you inherit a house, so you
Things
can't.
happen.
You got to rewrite the policy because that policy was written in grandma's name. And it was for grandma. So you need to cancel and then rewrite the policy into the person who inherited grandma's house. Now, what we're seeing people do is doing life leases where they are doing the legal transaction where they're basically saying the house is this person's or a group of people's house, or own the house now that are family members. Mm-hmm. And through my life, as long as I'm alive, I have the right to convey the real estate. I have the right to do whatever I want, including take them off. But if I pass away, they are the rightful owners of this property.
That would probably be the worst case scenario is if grandma passed away, left you a house, or left your family of, 2 or 3 family members the house to sell, and nobody between you talked and said, you know what? we didn't pay the insurance bill, and then by some freak of nature something happened to the house, then you would be on the hook for the damage that was done.
There's some gaps there that can really be problematic, where a claim may not be covered at all because the person who owned the house is no longer here and we don't know who you are. Because even though you're telling me that all this paperwork and processes were done and you inherited the house.
Talk to you.
Well, no, we need to be insurance for that should be a front end discussion, so that we're properly, because if as the example, I, and along with my stepbrother and my sister, own my parents' house.
Okay.
All right, through a life estate, through a life lease. And so we are listed as additional insureds in their policy because we're owners. So we have exposure there. So it's about getting that front end stuff. So if you're going through the process of making things, putting things in place, make sure insurance is a part of the discussion. Even if you may find you don't need to do anything, but highly likely you will.
So do each of you have an opportunity to have insurance separately on that same thing?
No,
you can't do that.
No, we're just part of their policy,
Gotcha.
which is a non-premium bearing piece of coverage that just protects our interest.
My grandmother has a little bit of money and property. Should I call her today and be like, "Hey, you're old. What are you leaving me? And let's talk today."
Well, if there was a lawyer that came in and did these types of conversations, and you were doing this, they'd say, "Look, you don't want to go into probate." You want to have a clear direction of where this property is going when the ultimate time comes that you pass, whether it be expected or unexpected. You want to be prepared for that. So even Jen and I have got all this legal paperwork process so that if I pass away or she passes away, our house and the insurance and everything it's following a proper trajectory. So we're not...
If you're having this conversation with your insurance agent, should they also have a connection to the lawyer who is also handling this? Like,
we would ask for legal paperwork. We would just ask if there's a quick claim deed or if there's some legal paperwork that says, especially with power of attorney. We see that a lot. POA. Well, give us the POA, and then we can start taking your signature and dealing with you directly versus the person that you're POA for to make sure that we're doing this properly. So there's some protocol there that we have to follow. But, going back to somebody passing away, even, husbands and wives, say the husband or the wife passes away, we don't even really want to call them right off and say, "Look, do you want to take so-and-so's name off the policy?" Because, again, we want them to have a period of mourning. I mean, my grandmother... she lived to be in her late 80s, and my grandfather passed when he was 69, and to the day my grandmother passed away, in the phone book, you know what a phone book is, kids?
I still do.
Yeah. It was still my grandfather's name in the phone book because that's the way she preferred it. So we want people to have that, comfort level of discussion of where they're at. But it's about talking to us.
Good Policies with Mike Barrett from Barrett Insurance in St. Johnsbury. If you have questions, you can give him a call at
748-5224. You can find us on Portland Street in St. Johnsbury, online, thebarrettagency.com, Google, Facebook, and YouTube. Just look for Barrett Insurance Agency.
Good to see you. See you next week.
All right.